So this is your evaporator box. Now what's going on in your evaporator, this is actually what's getting cold inside the AC system. Refrigerant flows through it, fills up the evaporator, air blows through the evaporator and takes any heat out. It absorbs the heat and takes any moisture out. Now your expansion valve is here, and what you have going on here, your refrigerant is going from a high pressure gas to a low pressure liquid, and that state change is what's causing the heat and pressure drop. The other side of the evaporator, you have a thermistor, and what this is doing is checking the physical heat of the physical temperature of the evaporator itself, and it's relaying that information to the vehicle's computer to regulate the functions of the AC system. Most common reason for failure in an evaporator is just a leak. A lot of times it's hard to find a leak in an evaporator. You have a pinhole in this evaporator, it's hard to get that dye to come out at the right spot for you to see it with your UV light. Now what you can do is, if you're getting any dye out of the system, a lot of times it's going to come out of this drain tube here, so always make sure you're checking that drain tube for dye. You want to make sure that this tube is free and clear so that it can remove all the moisture. And if you get a leak in your evaporator case, you just have to replace it. All this has to come apart, evaporator has to be replaced and reinstalled. This is the original evaporator that came out of this vehicle. Dirt, mud, hair, pine straw, leaves, all this is hindering airflow. Now, if you have this temp probe in this evaporator and all the area around it is clogged with debris, you're actually getting false readings to your computer. Your thermistor is an electrical component. Just like any electrical component, it can fail. And so when that happens, you do have to take the case apart, change the thermistor. In some cases, you actually have to change the whole HVAC box. Expansion valves can get clogged with debris, especially if you have a compressor that has failed. Any debris that has come out of that compressor as it failed can get stuck in the expansion valve. Now on this type of evaporator, you can flush the inside. The newer evaporators are similar to the parallel flow condensers, where they can't actually be flushed at all. So any debris that's in the system is going to stay there until you actually replace the whole evaporator. Now be very careful when you're working on the evaporator. You have aluminum on brass. This can easily get scarred up. Threads can get crossed, and when that happens, you have to start over. You can't fix that most of the time. You have to put a new evaporator in. Make sure we're not using power tools on this. It's very easy to bend and break these components, and you don't want to have to take everything apart and start over. For the counter person, when you're selling an evaporator, always go ahead and recommend the expansion valve over the orifice tube. These parts are normally hard to get to, and it's best to go ahead and do it while you have the evaporator case apart. Quick, easy sell is your cabin air filter. Most of the time it's going to be close to this evaporator already. Go ahead and recommend it. It needs to be changed.